This is why I think the Niners want Kyle Shanahan to promote an offensive coordinator. I don't know. It seems like something that would be a solution. Okay, he spread a little thin. Let's let him focus on being the job that we hired him to be. Let's let him focus on being a head coach, hire an offensive coordinator. I think this is why he should really delegate the play calling, because he's good at it sometimes, but it seems like an all-encompassing job that you have that requires 100% of your mental attention. And if you're giving all of your attention to the next play call, the next play sequence, you're going to miss these details consistently, whether it's a rule for overtime or it's a rule for the process of hiring a coach. It's always going to be something that's an oversight of yours. Whereas you don't have oversights with the details of your X's and O's. He's got to delegate that, or else he could do what Sean McVay did and hire a coach who is 100% dedicated to when to go for it on fourth down, when to use a timeout, the clock, when to challenge. The Rams literally have a game management coordinator, and his name is John Stryker, and they hired him last year. Kyle could do that, but he's got to do something.
Iggy, I loved the second idea, hiring a game management coordinator, because Kyle is lost in the world of his plays. And
Yes.
he's like a poker player. He's thinking 2 plays, 3 plays, 4 plays, or a chess player. He's thinking that way. God love him. But there are other details in a game. And Kyle shouldn't have to think about that stuff. He should think about his plays, and the guy should be on the earphone saying, Kyle, do you want to go for it here? Kyle, we're getting close to 0 on the clock. Do you want to call a timeout? Things like that. And Iggy, you pointed out to me that a lot of head coaches exclusively do that. Like both Harbaughs, the guy in Detroit, Sirianni,
Dan Campbell. Dan Quinn. Here's an interesting. Okay, Dan Quinn. Look at Dan Quinn. He was just a very successful defensive coordinator for the Cowboys the last few years, calling plays. Gets hired by the Commanders off the strength of his play calling as a defensive coordinator in Dallas. What's the first thing he does when he goes to Washington? Give up play calling. Says, I want to be the head coach. I want to be focused on clock management, game management. Yeah.
Okay, but Kyle is like Bill Walsh. He wants to call his plays, and that's okay by me. But he should have help during the game on the things he doesn't need to think about. So he needs Mr. X to do that for him. Certain head coaches we just named do that exclusively, and they have other people call their plays. I don't think we need to be that drastic with Kyle. You and I, who the hell are we? But he needs help in that other department. And Iggy, do we know if he has help in that department?
I don't know that he does have help in another department. Let's look at the 2 coaches who have help in that department. The 2 coaches who are currently alive in the playoffs who call offensive plays. Sean McVay, Andy Reid. In Sean McVay's case, we just laid it out. He's got a game management coordinator. That's smart. In Andy Reid's case, he has an offensive coordinator, Matt Nagy, who calls plays sometimes. So Andy Reid, I mean, he's one of the all-time great coaches. He can handle it. He can handle all the duties like Bill Walsh could. But there are certain times in the games where he needs to focus on bigger picture things, and he absolutely will delegate to Matt Nagy, and you'll see Matt Nagy being the one communicating to Patrick Mahomes. I think Kyle needs to have that kind of flexibility, and maybe he's going that direction. He did let Clay Kubiak call the plays week 18. There is precedent going forward if he makes that decision.
I love it. If Kyle were to show that kind of flexibility, to be able to step back sometimes to see the bigger picture, Iggy, I think it would be a tremendous moment of growth for him. And I would add, I think he's totally incapable of growth.
Totally. And what's funny is, like, 2 years ago, NFC Championship game, they lose to the Eagles. First drive of the game, Eagles are driving. They go for it on fourth down. Hurts throws long to Devontae Smith. They call it complete. It was clearly dropped. And Kyle Shanahan is focused on whatever he focuses on during games, doesn't call a challenge. And the Eagles end up scoring. And of course, we know what happened in the game later than that. But it's like Kyle needs to be 100% focused and dialed in on not just off-season rules and playoff rules, but like moments like that during the game, because he's not particularly good at it. We saw with the Packers, Matt LaFleur is awful at it, and Sean McVay seems to recognize his shortcomings and has addressed them.
Right. And I think it would make all the sense in the world for Kyle to do it. I just feel that Kyle has, on offense, has tremendous trouble delegating. That he is not only wants to be the head coach, he wants to be the dictator and the boss. I could
Yeah,
be
he wants to be
wrong.
Bill Walsh. A lot of people want to be Bill Walsh. The problem is he's the greatest coach of all time, and it's not easy to be a great play caller and a great game manager at the same time.
Yeah, and Iggy, I would also add that Bill was charismatic. He was charismatic. I've mentioned it before. On Thanksgiving, he would call the team together and they'd be in the locker room, each guy sitting at his locker, and he'd go around and he'd say to each guy, say what you're thankful for today. That's important.
Mm-hmm.
That's important that it's sometimes you get out of football and you
Right.
think about, Steve Kerr is capable of things. We know that. That's what makes him special. And Bill, I don't see Kyle even having an interest in that. I don't, and I think that tells you something about him. He's, I want to say, limited, and his limitations extend to his head coachingness.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about right now. He definitely has an expertise in his field. He's as knowledgeable as anyone, but he's not just a scheme designer or play caller. He's a head coach, and you can see with these other head coaches who are more successful than him, at least this season, how they approach it. Dan Quinn was they worked together. He was his head coach. And when he got a second opportunity, maybe Kyle will get a second opportunity one day if he leaves the Niners. Dan Quinn understood, I'm not a play caller. I know I'm a good one. I know I have a good defense, but I have to delegate that because there's more important things that only I can handle on this team.
Iggy, if I were a football voting writer, and I never have been, I was baseball, I would vote Dan Quinn as coach of the year. I mean, there are other coaches who did a beautiful job. The guy in Denver did a beautiful job as well. Dan Campbell's done a beautiful job. But what he did in Washington is phenomenal. I would vote him coach of the year. Has Kyle ever been coach of the year?
No, he was coordinator of the year his last year in Atlanta, right before the Niners hired him, but he's not been coach of the year. His best chance to winning coach of the year was probably 2019 when he first made the team good, but that year it went to John Harbaugh.
Okay.
Yeah.
John Harbaugh.
Jim Harbaugh also has won it. He won in his first year with the 49ers.